Welcome to the We Talk Chelsea podcast. We're here yet again, as we are every single Monday, 9:30 GMT to 10:30 GMT, and we're here with Tem tonight. Tom is on his way to take over the presenting duties of my good self. It's never been my forte. I never have claimed it has been. But it's been another disastrous weekend for Chelsea. I say another one. It all looked good last week. Yesterday, we got back to reality. Tem, what do you reckon about yesterday's debacle?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't say I saw it coming, but I just didn't want to get carried away with everyone sort of. Hello, Tom.
Hello, Tom.
Sorry,
hello, presenter.
I can't fix my technical difficulty, so everyone's got an insight to my spare room. So I have little butchers. You've seen my desk in the background. Anyway, I digress. Hello, sorry I'm late. Go on, Tem, tell me about it. What did you think of yesterday?
Shocking. Shocking. Well, yeah, to start with, I think we'll get more into detail, but I would say it's kind of alluded to the other side. I thought that Chelsea fans were getting very carried away with the start against Liverpool. They saw just nothing but positives from that game, and I think we often do forget, get deluded in thinking that we're just going to push on from there. But then you can see the other side of what can go wrong with this Chelsea team, and I think yesterday pretty much showed that we're still a club very much in transition, despite the money spent. So yeah, go over to you, Charlie. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I mean it's a funny one, isn't it? Because before the game I was very positive. Last week on the podcast I was very positive. I really thought that it was a good draw, but then I was thinking to myself today, on reflection, we drew with Liverpool twice last season. We all turned up for Liverpool. And we even the year before we battled very hard with two finals against them as well. And to be fair, we've lost to West Ham, or at least drawn to West Ham, a number of times away from home. So, has anything changed much? Probably not. But actually, you've got to take some positives from the performance. I thought that the first half we really did play quite well, apart from obviously the goal that we conceded. But I thought that in terms of the way that we, particularly Sterling, Jackson, linked up. I thought it was actually quite impressive. The second half was not to be desired. I would say it was a real schoolboy, a schoolboy performance in terms of not taking the grip of the game. But I thought in the first half there was signs of something going on there, and some positives to take from a defeat, unfortunately, and we roll on to next week and we carry on. Tom?
Yeah, so this game, I was very excited for this game, to be completely honest with you. The performance against Liverpool, whilst it wasn't perfect, it was encouraging compared to last season. But as soon as that corner went in and the goal came in from Aguerd, I think it's pronounced. I think I pronounced that completely wrong. But the first goal from West Ham, I thought, okay, this is a key. This is a key indicator of if this Chelsea team has kind of changed its mentality. And I think we said in the WhatsApp group amongst ourselves, like, this is a key example of if the team can actually pull back from this. And then we actually saw, again, I think it was pretty similar to last season, was the second half of the first half, Chelsea with a better team, creating more chances, looking lively. Raheem Sterling had his best performance in a Chelsea shirt, undoubtedly. He was absolutely incredible. That is the £60 million that Chelsea spent last summer. That is what we wanted from him. He was taking players on. West Ham's left flank couldn't handle him. Like, they just couldn't handle him at all for that first half. I think the turning point was the penalty miss. I just think heads dropped after that point. We managed to go ahead with a goal. We managed to equalise with Chukwuemeka with a great finish with his first senior goal ever. And the heads just kind of drops. Like, I thought, okay, well, if they're going into half time, maybe they can do something. But even at that point, when West Ham had a player sent off, we got worse. I don't understand how that happened. We got worse, and where does that what makes you think that 10? Why do you think that was? Was it simply just down to the Pochettino signing? Was it just a case of we're 2-1 down now from again 3 mistakes? Again, that's the result of this for the loss of this game.
So, what do you mean? Are you talking about the mistakes, or why did we get worse after we went down to 10 men?
Both, because surely by now, we're in a commanding position. Yes, we are 2-1 down at this point, but we were creating a lot of chances. We were looking the livelier team. West Ham, in theory, they won the game through 2 set pieces, really, and taking advantage of a mistake from Axel Disasi.
What I would say is just the typical thing I've thought of for the last few months. You need to be clinical when you're on top, otherwise teams will punish you, especially in the Premier League. I think it's all good having 70% possession or maybe 10 shots and 2 on target or whatever, but if you don't kill a team early off, and we've often seen this even saw it with Liverpool on Saturday. Charlie or someone in the group had messaged, haha, Liverpool 1-0 down. What do? Straight away respond, and then respond again by going 2-1 up. And that's something you don't see from Chelsea. We often either leave teams in the game or give them the game by not scoring our chances. I mean, how many times have you seen us go 1-0 up and then another team brings it back to 1-1, or the opposite? We go 1-0 up and they bring the game back to 1-1. And it's just a case of you've got to, kill the game off as soon as you can. And unfortunately, with all our good possession, we never seem to do that. And I actually did feel sorry for Sterling, because there was a great chance where he ran past like 3 or 4 players and played it square across the box. And I thought that had to be a goal. Like that was it. And, you miss those final pieces that I think are vital for us to really get there, because you look at all the other top teams and I think they have a 20-man a goal season, and we certainly don't look like we have one. And Raheem Sterling seems to be more on the end of creating our chances than finishing them, which is a problem in itself, because I think he's not so great nowadays at maybe taking players on as he used to be. I think he's more of a player that needs to be on the final end of those chances. And, playing Chilwell left wing and playing Mudryk centre mid for 10 minutes, I just thought all the sort of positioning went out the door as soon as they went down to 10 men. We sort of just chucked everyone on in an attacking sense, and we still didn't look like scoring even then. So West Ham had already set their, deep block. They had Edson Alvarez that came on. They had Zouma, Bonner, Souček. I can't remember the other centre-back they brought on. Aguerd, I think. No, it was either guy that got sent off. I think Aguerd got sent off. But they had so much height in that defence, and all we kept trying to do was play looping balls into Nicolas Jackson, who's actually notoriously very bad in the air. So I think it was just accumulation of a lot of things that went wrong. And it sort of showed us that maybe we're not quite done in the transfer market, and this squad isn't as good as everyone thinks it is. I hope that kind of summed it up.
Yeah, I mean, Charlie, it's relatively early days, but I just want to evaluate kind of early Pochettino tactics from your opinion. Do you feel playing Ben Chilwell as far advanced as he currently is? I think he's pretty much just playing as a left winger, an out left winger at this point. Do you think that's beneficial? Is it something that we need to, especially against these teams that are going to counter, have that ability to drop back and just play where he should be playing as a left wing back? Because we haven't actually seen Chelsea in the kind of 4-2-3-1 that we are all seeing. We've seen 3 at the back, and is it simply just to accommodate centre backs?
Yeah, I think it's a funny one, isn't it? Because it's a squad this squad basically has been made ever since Bowley took over, because everybody else has now left pretty much. So this is a squad that's been built by Tuchel, a little bit of Tuchel, a little bit of Potter, a bit of advice from Lampard, and a bit of advice from Pochettino, and a couple of new sports directors. So it's a complete mashup, essentially, of everyone's vision, direction, everything like that. What is Chilwell? In my opinion, Chilwell is a fantastic left wing back. He's got a brilliant ability going forward. Defensively, maybe questionable. But I think yes, we should be playing in a 4. I think long term we will. I think the idea is to play in that 4-2-3-1 that you were talking about. We've been a little bit unfortunate with injuries again. which we'll probably go on to. But I think that the long-term ambition of Pochettino is to go into that. I think he's been a little bit scared, especially in the first game. And I think because they played that well in the first game in the 3, I think he just thought, well, why not do it again? Why change something that's not broken? And I can understand that. Tim?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of already explained, but something that did quite baffle me was the second half when Chilwell went off. It still looked like we were playing a back 3 because you saw Disasi, Thiago Silva, and Colwell. Disasi, I was quite disappointed in the fact that he kept giving the ball to the player right next to him. I thought maybe he could have pushed up a little bit further to add a bit more pressure onto West Ham because, like we said, we were passing the ball around our back 3 even though they were down to 10 men. And I found it quite strange that Pochettino didn't maybe take off Disasi or someone, bring maybe Cucurella on, or someone who just a bit more adventurous going forward, because at that point we had really nothing to lose. And then bringing on Mason Burstow, having Madueke, Jackson, Sterling, Mudryk all on at the same time, it kind of just, formation was completely lost there. And I just thought we just ended up crossing the ball to absolutely no one. And, we don't particularly have any height. And in the first half, we were actually playing a lot of balls on the ground, which I saw in pre-season we were working quite well at. And it maybe highlights the fact that we do need a number 10, because if you saw often the chances we were creating, it was where Nicolas Jackson often dropped in deep. And the thing is, he needs runners off then by the time we do that. And it kind of highlights a number 10 is vital to make that work effectively, I suppose, and especially against low blocks where you kind of need players to make unselfish runs forward. Instead, what we kept doing was take the easy option out wide, try cross it into a striker, and they have towers in the middle of the box, so it just didn't seem to work. I don't know what you think, Tom.
I mean, let's talk about that for a second. It's like with the lack of a number 10. I mean, I think the number 10 that we purchased to act in that role is Christopher Nkunku, because I think he's supposed to be playing in this scenario as a number 10, potentially playing behind Nicolas Jackson. Nicolas Jackson, I think we've said, he's a bit lively, he's a bit more dynamic as opposed to some of the other centre forwards that Chelsea have had in recent seasons. But Nkunku, that lack of person to play off, I don't understand as well. Like Jackson and Ian Maitland were playing really, really well in pre-season. They seem to have some sort of chemistry, but we haven't seen them really link up at all. I don't understand that dynamic whatsoever, why they haven't played together. Does that make sense? Because if it's me and I'm a manager and I see this is really working for me in pre-season, I need to take that forward into the first few games of the season. But it just we haven't seen that kind of connection. Yeah, of course.
I think it's possibly the fact that he could be on his way out. I think that's a big reason. I think it's dangerous to play a guy or keep a guy integral to your squad if he could potentially be sold in the next few weeks, essentially, because it looked like he's been one of the names that's been mentioned to go out for a sale. The same as Andre Santos. I think you won't see him either because he could potentially go out on the loan as well.
And Chalobah, haven't seen much of him.
There's
a few injured. Yeah, but there's a few players that you can see that are, Santos certainly one of them.
Yeah.
It's just, to me, it's just, frankly, it's been a little bit bizarre. And I'm very aware it's kind of early days, but it was just incredibly frustrating watching that game. And, Pochettino is supposed to be like really, really well with young players. And I was watching it with my missus. My missus doesn't like football. She doesn't watch football at all. But I even said to it, the amount of time she said, why isn't nobody in the box? Like, why isn't anybody in that area? Why are they? It's the same thing from last season, really. Like Nicolas Jackson to an extent is in there, but she can pick up. She doesn't watch football. And I was saying to her as well, I don't understand the substitution. Like, why we still continue to stick with the three centre backs. I don't understand why Disasi wasn't taken off and then pushed forward. Why wasn't a change made? It just didn't make sense. You guys both know me. I'm a pretty positive person when it comes to managers and tactics and things like that. Like, because sometimes things work, sometimes things don't. And this definitely just did not work at all. And I think the thing I can't get around is how we got worse. How we actually got worse with having an extra man. It made us worse. So where does the fault lie? Does that lie with the players not knowing what they're doing, or does it lie with the manager like making the decision to, you know, take a defensive player off as opposed to taking Chilwell off, who can be seen as a I mean, if you're going to keep a defensive player on and you're trying to score goals, you'd keep Ben Chilwell on, surely. Surely it makes sense to take a Colwell off, or even a Thiago Silva. Even a Thiago Silva at that point, it would probably be more beneficial. Does that make sense?
Yeah, go on, Charlie.
I just think the game plan was what we did in the first half. That was the game plan from the off. When Carney got injured, that was obviously a turning point, probably bigger than the penalty in some respects, because that changed the game plan, didn't it? You know, the game plan was to put a lot of things. You know, I thought he was fantastic until you know, he scored a brilliant goal, and until then he was fantastic. So I think the game plan just changed. That was what happened, and obviously when the game plan changes, the penalty, yes, but there's plenty. You can easily. We were drawing at that point. We weren't losing. We were drawing. So it wasn't like one of those moments where you go, "Oh, this is just destiny," or, you know, this is it. You know, I thought it was. I thought that was the turning point more so than the penalty. The red card. It's a funny one because they were winning at that point, and all they had to do is park the bus. They didn't have. They knew that they had a lead to defend. They were winning 2-1 at that point. They knew they had a lead to defend. All they had to do is park the bus. If they got away with a 2-2, and what minute was it? 65, 70? About that. They sort of knew that they probably had about enough in the bank just to put them behind the ball. And like we say, we're becoming a much better counter-attacking team. That's where the danger is with us. When we have the possession, it doesn't necessarily do us any favors, you know, because we do find that we are going to find it hard to break teams down. We always have. We've always found it hard to break teams down. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. But how much do you think Carney Tem is a miss?
Well, it's kind of a shame. Really. Every player every player that seems to do something well for Chelsea either gets injured or you know, something tragic seems to happen to them. So it's not a good sign at the moment for anyone who looks to get some type of form. I think it's more of a big miss for himself because this could potentially impact his long-term future. I think the club are going to look to sign someone specifically directly for his position. I don't think it will be, you know, an alternative or anything. So it's kind of a shame because you know, last season I was campaigning for him to play a lot, and he just finally started to get his chance. And what did we sign him for? 18 million? Something around that.
Yeah, it was a lot of money. It was about 15, 16 million, wasn't it? It was a lot of money for essentially an unknown player at the time.
Yeah, but so I think, well, he wasn't super expensive, and that's kind of going against him because if another player comes in for 20, 30 million, whatever, to replace him, he could see himself fall back right down the pecking order again. And, you know, with a 4 or 5 month injury, that's surely a bad spell because we're not actually sure what his injury is. It could be an MCL, I've heard, or potentially a knee injury that's keeping him out for a couple of months. So, again, it's going to take time for him to then build himself back up to get that form when he just finally started playing again. So, yeah, in terms for his own future, I think it's a bad injury. For Chelsea, I think, yeah, it's a position anyway. I thought we needed strength because I did mention about, like, I don't think there's anyone that picks up the ball in those half spaces. And, you know, you've seen it with Nkunku in preseason. He was very good at occupying that space when him, Carney, and Jackson was linking up really, really well in sort of those little tight intricate spaces, and I don't think we often use that enough against West Ham. And I think you just need that an outlet as a team. You see it with teams like Man City and Arsenal. Yes, they have fantastic wide players, but they also have good final third players who you know, playing that number 10 sort of strike, just like ghost in the box sort of position. And I think it's something we definitely need, because I don't see Enzo getting you many goals. I don't see Caicedo getting you many goals. So, who's your outlet? Mudryk and Sterling, but often they are very much in the wide position. So when you need to get in those little holes and pockets of space, it's good to have a player who can either wriggle out that space and make a great pass, or just a tiny finish before a defender can get a block in.
I thought it was a Frank Lampard-esque goal. I said that, after that's the kind of player that we need. I think is a Frank Lampard, a guy who can give you 20 goals a season. I know it's very hard to come by these sort of players from midfield, but who can Kevin De Bruyne, these kind of players who people can rely on, to a Steven Gerrard, a Frank Lampard, a Paul Scholes, these kind of guys who you can rely on for the odd long shot, the odd free kick, but also just well, he causes a nightmare yet again. I mean, but I was one, and you can talk about it, but I was one who campaigned for us to sign him, because he will just but you can laugh, but he will. There's no doubt about it. He will put in a good corner, and he will put in a good free kick. We saw, and I think he scores penalties as well, doesn't he? Yeah. I mean, we haven't got a penalty taker anymore, and penalties are important. We're probably over the course of a season going to have 10 penalties given to us, so we need someone who can take penalties. Surely.
Let's talk about the penalty situation. I don't understand why Enzo Fernandez took it.
Because we haven't got anyone.
But surely, when you want a striker on the ball at that point, somebody to open their. I appreciate Enzo needs to open his account from a goal scoring standpoint, but why didn't somebody like Nicolas Jackson take it? Because it's a confidence game. Surely you get off the mark, that's going to help him.
Well, I would say that there's been plenty of strikers who have been bad at taking penalties. Michael Owen's one of them. That there are strikers out there who just weren't very good at taking penalties, and there's plenty of defenders who are very good at it. Frank Leboeuf, I don't think he ever missed a penalty for us, right? So it's a bit of a weird one. You have to be that kind of mole where you have that ability to switch off from the crowd, to be able to practice that thing, and be able to have the dark arts with the goalkeeper. I don't think we have that player anymore. Obviously, we had Jorginho before. I thought Sterling was the one who was probably best fitted to take that penalty, but we can talk about it till it is what it is. I look at it. Enzo probably get a penalty next week and score. That's the way that I look at it. But what do you reckon, Tim, about penalty? That penalty?
Yeah, well, I kind of tend to agree with you, to be honest. I think, it's obvious the manager sets out the first penalty taker, second penalty taker, third penalty taker. During training, they all take penalties, and they've probably assessed and think Enzo has the most hit ratio compared to any other player. So he's going to be the first penalty taker. We had notoriously Frank Lampard and Jorginho, like you said, midfielders who took penalties. So, if that's the case. And I think David Luiz was one of our backup penalty takers if Lampard didn't take it. I'm pretty sure he was, yeah. So
he used to run a straight line. He'd be out. I think he famously took penalties from outside the D. His run-up would start outside of the D.
Yeah.
And he just hit it as hard as he could with his side foot and try and knuckleball it in. It's one of my favourite penalties to watch.
Yeah, so again, just showing you that anyone who's confident enough in their own technique can take a penalty, and clearly Enzo may have felt that. I've not seen a great shooting technique from him, to be honest, even just regular shooting. So I was a bit surprised that he was the one to step up, but it was a poor penalty for his standards anyway, I think. But again, I don't think it was the be all and end all for that game. I didn't think that if we had scored that, we definitely would have won the game. I don't think that. I still think that there is a fragility to this Chelsea team that we kind of needed to see. And I'm not saying I'm glad to have seen it, but it kind of confirmed what I thought that we kind of.
No, I know what you mean. It's kind of a bit. It's weird. I'm going to disagree, because I think if we'd have scored that penalty just before halftime when it was, I think we would have gone on and won the game. I genuinely do, because I think we're very much confident on this. We haven't won a game we've won one game in 14 Premier League games. across the 2 seasons. Yeah, it's a completely different team, but that stat alone is shocking. 1 game in 14 games. That's really, really, really bad. And we've got a brand new squad that's coming in. And there's so many calls at the moment to kind of like move on some of the old guard, like in terms of like, we'll go back to Raheem Sterling. Like I said, I think he had a fantastic game. But there's been calls to Sterling to not be starting these games and have other players starting, like Noni Madueke is coming back to fitness from the under-21s. And, you know, Mikhailo Mudryk starting as well. Like, I think you were a big proponent, I think, Tem, if I remember correctly, and keep me honest, but I think you were quite keen to see Mudryk have a run of games to build up that confidence, to build up that kind of match fitness. But when he came on, he certainly didn't look, I don't want to say interested, but he had that chance with that cross, and it was the first time, difficult hit to do, but he very badly mishit that. You just have to guide it at that point with that amount of pace to get it on target, and that probably would have been enough. Like, is Mikhailo Mudryk, should we be fully dive into Mikhailo Mudryk just yet? Because I haven't seen it just yet. I really haven't seen the money.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge issue, and it's something also I alluded to, is that you're filling up a lot of this squad with a lot of young players, so it's essentially everyone battling for minutes, and you know, it's kind of a dangerous precedent if you don't give enough game time to certain players, and I think Mikhailo Mudryk is a perfect example of that. I think he's a very, very, very raw player, and he needs a lot of game time to refine his game. So we need to be smart in terms of who we recruit in terms of these backup positions, or, you know, alternatives positions, because if you're just going to give it to certain everyone's going to be a young player, everyone's going to need game time to gain experience, to refine their game, to sort of feel the motion of the game, where if you have experience there, some players will come on and know exactly what to do, and when to do certain things. So, you know, a player like Mudryk not starting, and Chilwell's ahead of him, I believe, because, yeah, Chilwell's been playing left wing a lot. How does he gain that confidence? How does he's going to do wild things like he did yesterday. You know, there was a brilliant moment. He first came on, he beat Koufal on the left wing, got us a free kick. Then the next second, he's done that volley, like you say. So it just shows like he's not the finished product at all. Pre-season, he looked great. Now he looks crap. So, you know, he needs like 4 or 5 games in a row. But at the same time, can we afford that? Can we afford the inconsistency he's showing? Because our rest of our team is inconsistent as well.
Let me give you a question, Tem, and Tom as well. How much do you think that the Chelsea average fans believe in Mudryk purely on the fact that we paid that much money for him and the fact that Arsenal wanted him as well? Is there any evidence that we've seen so far? Because I haven't. All I've seen is that he's got a bit of pace. But Robin had a lot of pace when he came to Chelsea, but he had something else. There was something else about him. He could take players on. He could do. There was a lot more to his game at that point, and he was seen as a very similar player. Played on the left wing, and essentially won us the title, I would say, in the first year that he was there. I would argue that I just haven't seen enough from Mudryk yet, and I want to. You know, I really like watching him because I can see that there's the pace, but I don't see, apart from the pace, a lot more there. But I'll leave it to you guys. What do you think?
I worry if he gets injured, because if you look at players like Callum Hudson-Odoi, he was electric. His pace was ridiculous, and that was his main thing.
But I think he had more to him. I really do. I think he had more to him than Mudryk does now.
I agree. But if you take Mudryk's pace away from him, what are you left with? So if, say, for example, touch wood if he doesn't, but, say, for example, he does his Achilles, similar to what Callum Hudson-Odoi did. Like, what's there? Where's the investment? I want to see it come good. I really, really do. We have to kind of like keep the faith in this scenario. It's still early days. We've got Luton on Friday. That's probably going to be the best thing to do. We've got a question come through from Gotti Afunzi. Just bring this up here now. So, hi guys, please, what do you think about West Ham player encroachment just before the penalty kick was taken, which should have been retaken, but VAR didn't call the referee's attention to that? We've seen it last season for the encroachment, especially on a missed penalty. It has been discussed as well. I think it wasn't just that wasn't the only area of like encroachment or keeper advancement. I think in the Women's World Cup final, Mary Earps was also off her line for the penalty save, which should have been retaken again. I mean, it is the rules. Like, I don't want to be butthurt about it because there's no guarantee he would have scored it, the second time. Do you know what I mean? But it's in the rules. It should be retaken. But should it be retaken if the goal goes in? That's why I don't. That's unclear to me, Tim. Like, is this an example where it should just been retaken? But is this just me clutching at straws, trying to find any sort of kind of like positive scenario from this?
Yeah, because from my understanding of the rules, anyway, I may be wrong on this, but he was on the line leaning forward, and on the line counts as inside the box. So technically, I think he was encroaching. That's from my understanding of it.
Was he the player that was it Souček? Was he the player that made the clearance as well?
Yeah.
So if you think about it, last season, Kai Havertz had a penalty. It was something similar, wasn't it? And they had the encroachment. Was it against Dortmund?
Yeah, it was Dortmund. Right? Yeah, because he hit the post the first one, didn't he? And then he took it again and scored because of the encroachment from the Dortmund player. So if it's in the rules, I don't understand why it wasn't retaken. It's just another example of VAR. It's good. I genuinely think VAR is a good addition as a game, but it's just so wildly inconsistent. That's the only issue. Hopefully they can kind of get that resolved. But no, I appreciate your question, Gotti. Feel free, if you're watching the stream now, just to send some questions through to us. That'd be fantastic. We'll answer any questions that you send across to us. We're really good at sport questions and questions on Chelsea, so hopefully we can get the answers right. In light of the game that's just happened, let's ask the question: do we need to spend big again? We've spent close to £1 billion in the last 3 transfer windows. It is crazy levels of money. It's a lot of money. And is it a case of you stick in what you have and you're just kind of hoping these things come good, or do we need to go back into the market and get a dedicated number 9? Another backup number 10 for when Nkunku is fit. He's going to play second fiddle to Nkunku, let's face it. Do we need to... Is Robert Sanchez a number 1 goalkeeper? Like, did he come in on the basis that he's probably going to oust Kepa and be the new number 1? So do we need to go in and get a number 2 with Slanina going out on loan? And we've only got Bettinelli, who's still coming back from fitness. Like, do we need to go back into the market once again whilst the market's still open? There's still 10 days left of this window to get players in. Or do we need to look at loan situations and think, okay, we need something short term? Can I answer that first? I think we're running into quite an easy run of games, which is very fortunate. So I don't think we actually have
no
to.
No game is easy.
No game is easy, but
last season is testament to this.
A relatively easy run of games. We've got Luton at home. I believe we're playing the likes of Fulham, Bournemouth. Like what I'm trying to say is probably second. Let's say second half of the table teams. Okay, we don't have we've got this sort of thing up until Christmas, pretty much. I think wait until January. I really do. I just think come on, you've got to balance the book somehow. Wait until January. So far, Sanchez looks okay. I don't think he's made any particularly bad mistakes so far from what I've seen. He looks fine. Jackson, give him time. We've still got a massively bloated squad, in my opinion, as it is. I think we could do to just at the moment just stick with what we've got. We've got a really, when we compare this to last season and Potter and Lampard, we've got a much more experienced manager at the top level. Yes, he's not won everything. He's probably not quite on Tuchel's level yet, but he's got the ability, I think, to get there. So at the moment, I would say stick there just because of the fixture list coming up. That's my opinion. Tem, I know you're going to disagree.
Yeah, definitely disagree. I think because of how short the owners have been in, it's only been 12 months. A lot of people actually forget that. They only took over end of last May. So when people throw around, you've nearly spent £1 billion, it's because they've pretty much overhauled the whole squad, like the whole 24-man squad. I think just
to clarify, Tim, wasn't part of the provisions for the sale that they needed to invest in the stadium and the playing squad?
Yeah.
But
there wasn't a set figure on it.
I think it was over a 10-year period. It can't have been in 1 year, otherwise that would be outrageous. I mean,
I think the acceleration of the transfer spending is what brought the bill so high. And, a lot of context is actually lost in this. Like I've said, the amortization of these actual deals, how long these players' contracts, a lot of things that some certain fans won't want to look at or won't understand themselves. So we have spent a lot of money, but we've also sold a lot of players. I think that's another thing we need to factor in. Like I say, there's maybe only 3 or 4 players that were here before 12 months ago or 18 months ago. So again, you've got to add that into context. I think Chilwell, Silva, and the academy guys, the rest of them,
James,
the academy guys are the only ones who are pretty much the survivors of the exodus, I suppose you could say. So I think there is still a lot this squad needs. In terms of a rebuild, but on pure figures, obviously any fan would look at that and say we don't need to spend any money whatsoever. But if the goal is to get back in the top 6 or 7 or get back into the Champions League, this squad definitely there needs to be a transfer window open right now. I think in terms of a striker position, could we wait till January? Potentially, but do you risk Nicolas Jackson going down with an injury? Do you see out the Manchester United's, Man City's, Tottenham's, in that tough November, December period? I think we play Man City, Man United, Arsenal, Spurs, and maybe someone else, Newcastle around that time. So, do you go into those fixtures without a striker? And we know how notoriously bad we've been with false nines and whatever else has happened. So it's really about, I think, more where does the club want to see themselves? I think the club wants to get back in the Champions League, and the quickest way to do that is obviously spend. But you've got to spend smartly right now because, you've seen that spending carelessly won't mean that you'll get back into the top 5. I think spending the right player at the right time is the right thing to do, basically. I don't know if you guys agree on the goalkeeper. I think he may not be good enough.
I think it's harsh to judge Sanchez just yet because at the same time we haven't had a decent goalkeeper since Courtois. Let's face it, we really haven't. Yeah, we've had who?
Mendy's been decent
for
1
months.
year, for 6 months,
for a year, decent.
For 1 year, he was decent. And I think if he'd have taken over from Courtois, I don't think he would have been as revered because he came in against a keeper in Kepa. Easy for some to say. A keeper in Kepa that was wildly inconsistent, made lots of mistakes, and then we could have put me in goal, and I'm terrible in goal, which is apparent when we play on Friday nights and I go in goal. But I think it's too harsh to judge him just now. Like when he plays for Brighton, he was exceptional for Brighton. He really was. He was really, really good, and he's been linked to us for, at least I think it's a couple of seasons. There's been like rumblings of him, like us being interested in Robert Sanchez. I think we do need a number 2. I do, but it's who? That's the issue. You need to get somebody that's happy to play second fiddle to Robert Sanchez. Probably somebody older as well. I don't think Martinelli. Think of it this way. It's like you said, we don't have the best luck with injuries. If Sanchez gets injured,
we're in the mud.
Yeah. We've got Lucas Bergstrom or Ethan Beach. These are youth players that you're going to say, do you know what? Try it out. Who knows? It may go spectacularly well. Could go spectacularly wrong. And given our luck in the last few seasons.
Can I just interrupt you there? So we've just agreed a deal with to sign George Petrovic from.
Is that New England Revolution?
Yeah.
I think it was rumored for about $15 million, I believe. Is number 2?
60 million euros. It's quoted here.
I know. I'm going to be completely honest. I know absolutely nothing about this footballer. The first I heard of it was from literally when it was announced through Instagram. So again, somebody's probably watched this. If you're watching this now and you've seen this goalkeeper play in the MLS, please let us know if he's any good because we've got no clue. We're not going to pretend and lie to you. They think, oh yeah, he's decent on FIFA. Do you know what I mean? We have no clue. We
can I
don't.
just add one exciting fact if anyone wants to get excited? He has outperformed his expected goals on target by 16.2, which is crazy if you know about metrics, about like stats.
I don't. So for the benefit of idiots like me, just explain what that means.
So basically, he for those 16 shots on target, he was expected to concede those was 16.2. So yeah, he's basically outperformed his own self by saving those extra 16 shots that should have been goals by metrics.
Sign him up. That's what
Yeah.
we need. We need somebody like that. Gotti, thank you for sharing this. So Sanchez looked fine for now, but I wasn't impressed with the defence last night, especially Disasi. He looked shaky and rash with his tackles. It wasn't the best performance for Disasi. I think we need to be careful over bloating the squad, but we need another striker. What happens if Jackson gets injured?
It's a very good point. I think that it's a difficult one. I think because I think Jackson so far, I really like him. I like the way he plays football. I really do. I like the way that he runs at people. I like the way that he looks forward and not back. There's so many things that I like about him. Obviously, I'm waiting for him to score a Premier League goal, but I think hopefully at the Luton game on Friday, Luton at home, which is probably the easiest fixture of the season, he should break his see Tim shaking his head.
But I can't say these things. You jinx it. You jinx it. This is the thing. Like if you look,
I'm Mr. Positive. Last season I was Mr. Negative, but this season I'm Mr. Positive, and I'm going to vouch that Jackson will score at least one goal, maybe two, on Friday. I've just got a good feeling about it.
Well, I wish I could share that same sentiment. I'll be completely honest. And I will look at this on paper. The next run, we have 3 home games. We have Luton at home. We've got the League Cup against AFC Wimbledon. We've got Forest at home. Then we go to Bournemouth away, and then it's Villa at home. The next 4 games
are 3 points. All of them. I mean, Villa at home, maybe not, but no, Villa at home's a hard game. But the other 3 that should be 9 points. 100%.
On paper, yes. I think, look at last season. I can't get my hopes up.
I'm sorry, we can't sit in this mud forever, just treading water. There has to be a point where we go, you know what? We're actually Chelsea. We've spent £1 billion. We've got a good manager now. We've got to get out.
We had good managers last year, Lampard, but we had good managers.
I don't think they were as good as Pochettino. I think Pochettino on paper is better than them all. He's had a pre-season. Yes, okay. I think that on paper, man for man, we are better than every single one of those teams' players. Aston Villa's probably a different story. There's probably a couple of players in there that could probably get in our team, but we should be beating these teams, especially at home.
Yeah. I mean, I would like to say that, but I'm going to reserve it because I think it could go either way. Luton could be up for that game. They really could. Ross Barkley making his triumphant return from a season at Nice. He might be up for it. I don't think so. But, we never see. Chances are, I say that now, you go and score a brace and we lose 2-0. And that's just the way it is as a Chelsea fan. One thing I wanted to touch upon, I don't think I actually spoke to you guys before this, is Reece James. Charlie, you made a very a big statement last season, and you said, Reece James, I think we should cash in. If we got £100 million offer on Reece James, we should cash in. I think Temper and I was like, we can't do that. We just can't, just because when he does play, he's one of the best right backs in the world. Another hamstring injury, another one. It's getting hard to stay on that Reece James's fantastic bandwagon if he can't stay fit. You can't be considered one of the best right backs in the world if you can't stay fit. Do you still think that we should cash in on him when he's fit and you get 100 million and
we're not going to get 100 million for him anymore because every time he comes back, he's not quite as confident as the last time he came back. I've noticed this. I don't think against Liverpool. I thought in the first half he looked okay, and then after that he looked a bit tepid, if I'm being honest. I just don't think he's the old Reece James anymore, and I just think that that's my opinion. I love the guy, really, but it's unfortunate. Look at Calvert-Lewin yesterday for Everton. He got injured again. Yeah. What can he again? How much do you think he's worth? I don't think he's worth He's probably worth 20 million. Yeah, probably worth about 20 million quid.
No,
he should be.
No,
he should be worth a lot
he's
more.
English. He's English. He's 35 million minimum.
All right, 100 million then. He's English. Yeah. Well, whatever. But the point I'm trying to make is clubs won't sign him because of that. That's surely, and he wouldn't pass a medical because of that. And I think, look, I love Reece James, but it's good that we've got Gusto in there. You know, so it's not as much of an urgency to get him back. That's a good thing.
It's definitely like an advantage. I think that's why Gusto was brought in, because he does have a shaky track record. But Tem, I think you sit on the opposite side. You think we shouldn't cash in on Reece James just yet. Especially, would you say because we've got Malo Gusto to act as like a backup, and he knows even as a backup he's probably going to play a fair amount.
Yeah, so I don't know if you could bring up Kaz's comment. He said, "Do you feel Reece James would have made a difference?" Obviously, definitely a difference. I think what we saw with Malo Gusto is that he was very hesitant to go forward. Actually, I think we needed that overlapping run for Sterling. If you saw on the right hand side, he was often taking players on by himself. Like he literally took 2 or 3 players by himself, and I think you saw it against Liverpool actually, where Sterling often would take a pass from Reece James and lay it back off for Reece James to make that final pass. And I think when you do that, you sort of beat a couple of defenders so that it's much easier to get the ball in the box. And I think that's something that Gusto needs to work in his game. He did start to do that, but in the second half when West Ham had dropped really, really deep at that point, and it was just pointless trying to put in high, like someone alluded to, rainbow balls, if you know what I mean. So they loop over the top instead of hard smashed across the box where the defender has no time to react, sort of thing. Yeah, so we kind of played into their hands with that. So yeah, definitely Reece James would have made a difference. I think it makes a difference to most teams in the world, and it's just a shame that he's always injured, I think.
Yeah. So you just don't agree that it's be cash in when you can. Maybe let me give you a scenario, Tim. I'm just going to give you a scenario. Reece James does not stay fit for the rest of the season. Shock. He doesn't. He gets injured again. He does a hamstring or something like that at some point. Maybe in November time when we've got all the big games against the top 6 sides, including like Brighton and Brentford as well. And Malo Gusto performs spectacularly well. Maybe not to the levels of Reece James. Maybe not as big an attacking threat, but defensively solid. And if we do go back to a 4-2-3-1, where do you stand at that point? Do you think it's a case of Reece James potentially could be pushed a little bit to try and get some money in the door? Because, we've got to balance those books somehow.
To be honest, with the way football is going and where football is, I don't expect Reece James to be here in 10 years' time or maybe even 5 years' time. I think, especially because of his injuries, in 2 or 3 years, it could be the maximum he stays at this club. It depends on where we are and where he is. If we are a serious club, we look for someone to replace him in the long term, I think. And if it depends if he becomes so world class, maybe he wants to move on to something bigger if we don't achieve what he wants to achieve in football, maybe. So I think those 2 things need to match up for him to be here at Chelsea for the next 10 years, sort of thing. So I see one of those scenarios happening where either we become too ambitious, where we decide to replace him long term because he's had too many injuries, or alternatively he just we stop competing for titles because we spent too much money. Now we need to sell players, and he's one of our biggest assets, so we get him off the books. So yeah, I think his injuries are going to be a big concern from this season going forward. I think we need to throw our eggs in the Gusto basket and really kind of learn to deal without him, because you can't have your best player being injured all the time. It's just maybe a team like Man City can handle something like that, but I don't think we can. We're at that stage where we are really reliant on 3 or 4 players, I think, to make everything work.
Take City as an example. Kevin De Bruyne is injured now for at least up to 4 months. And, you saw the game, and I watched the game with City at the weekend, and Foden was incredible. He came in and he filled the position, and it was almost like they didn't miss a beat. And that, you're right, we we've been very, very reliant on the wing backs at Chelsea for the last few seasons, and unfortunately, those wing backs can't stay fit. So, I think it's time to explore those other options to get a plan B. If it's a plan A, fantastic. If it works, it works. But we do need a plan B, and we haven't been with that for a long time. Let's look towards the weekend. Friday evening at Stamford Bridge, Chelsea versus Luton in the third game of the Premier League. Could you see? Let's discuss how we think we're going to line up. We've done 3-5-2 for the last couple of games now with the wing backs. Could you see the start of the 4-2-3-1 in this scenario, considering we're able to bomb an extra player forward? Because let's face it, Luton are going to sit deep. They're going to play for that 0-0. They're going to try and hit us on the counter. Charlie, could you see the start of that? And who would drop out from the centre back? Do you think we're going to stick with Levi Colwill and potentially have Axel Disasi, rest Silva? Do you think it's likely going to rest Silva for the game against Wimbledon the week after?
No, it'll be resting Silva for the Wimbledon game. Disasi will go out, I think. Colwill steps in. Chilwell goes left back. Right back Gusto. I think it has to go back. It has to go there. Caicedo must be at that point match fit, ready to start a match. Has to happen. And obviously Enzo. I think the front three will be pretty well the same. The sort of three in the middle: Gallagher, Sterling, and Mudryk. Possibly, I don't quite know whether he'll keep his place, but we'll see. And Jackson up front. It'll look kind of it won't be quite as flaky as last season. I think last season we were, especially under Lampard, it was everywhere. I think it'll be fairly consistent. There'll be one in or one out, like we did against West Ham. But I think Pochettino doesn't want to play that flaky formation, flaky starting 11 as much anymore. What do you reckon, Tim?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's just how Chilwell positioned himself on the field and how we looked like we were at a back five. I think we kind of are a back four defensive structure, and then when we are on the ball, it kind of moves to a 3 where you see sort of Colwill stepping into a centre back sort of position, a left centre back sort of position, Thiago as the central one, and Disasi as the right one. So I think we'll see more of a consistent 4, like you say. I think, I hope we'll see a consistent 4 where it will just be Chilwell as left back and maybe Sterling on the left. I'm not quite sure who will play on the right. Maybe Madueke, maybe who knows? Or potentially Mudryk on the right, like you say, Gallagher, Enzo, and Caicedo. And I think we actually didn't mention Caicedo's debut. He looked completely awful, and he hasn't played a lot of football in the last.
Yeah. I don't think he did a lot. I don't think he played a lot of preseason.
I don't think he played
any at all.
I think he played maybe one game. Maybe one.
I think I understand why he was played, because if he's going to spend £115 million on a player, you've got to show a return as soon as possible. But I don't think it's the right thing. Look at Romeo Lavia, who wasn't even named on the bench. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he maybe doesn't start this game, but does start against Wimbledon. And maybe you could see Romeo Lavia play this game and come into the fold. I'm not sure about Gallagher. Could you see Gallagher maybe push up and play in his preferred number 10 position, Charlie?
I think in the first 2 games he's done okay, Gallagher. I think he's, but obviously he's been given this opportunity because I don't think we want him to leave. I think that's the key. And I think Pochettino is trying to fit him into the team as much as he can as well. But I hope so. I want to see him stay. I've said it. I think getting rid of these Cobham guys, Lewis Hall's another one. Getting rid like this is not necessarily a good thing long term. And I think it would be good to keep hold of Gallagher. And I think the first 2 games he's showed that he, okay, look, once everybody's fit, he might not necessarily start every game, but he's definitely got a place in the squad for Chelsea. A bit like Loftus-Cheek last season, I thought.
I just think we've signed too many players in his position, and it's no fault of his own. I'm just really confused at why are we signing so many central midfielders? Like that Aguerd, why did we sign him along with Lavia, along with Caicedo? We've already got Santos. We sent out Caicedo on loan. I just thought that's a bit too much of overkill. What formation are we actually planning to play in? Because it looks like we had Nkunku for number 10. We already have Madueke. We have Sterling, Mudryk now, and we're looking to sign another number 10 or attacking winger. So it looks like we're doing the thing we did last season, where we're stockpiling talent, but have we got a direction of where all these players are going to go? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And at the moment, there's 5 central midfielders. There's Aguerd, Caicedo, Enzo, Lavia, Gallagher himself. So and Santos at the club right now. So that's 6. There's only pretty much one game a week. How do you fit all that into a team?
I think with Carney Chukwuemeka getting injured, depending on the severity of his injury, I think that's going to result in Andre Santos not going out on loan. I think we might see Andre Santos. Yeah, I think he might stay. I think Leslie Iheanacho will go on loan because I think that's heavily rumoured. I think he will go out to Strasbourg. But I think Andre Santos, if it comes back and says Carney Chukwuemeka's out for 6 months, I think we'll keep Santos. I do. I think we do because they're kind of similar in terms of play. They're more like advanced players, whereas if we've got the players like Caicedo and Lavia, they're the ones who are going to be protecting the back line. And then we've got Enzo Fernandez as well. And I think he will be the option to drop out if Enzo, for whatever reason, picks up a knock or something along those lines. But I think we will retain Santos purely on that basis of Carney Chukwuemeka's injury. It'd be interesting to see. I mean, as we approach the hour here, I just want to talk about the predictions. Temba, you got it absolutely spot on. I don't know if you're aware of this prediction for the West Ham game, and Charlie and I were like, "Nah, it's not going to happen." But you got the exact. You got the result right.
You're wrong. I said 1-1. It was the other game.
I swear, or maybe I'm just getting confused.
Maybe that was just on the WhatsApp group or something. You were just playing.
Maybe I was just
playing games.
But I did say 1-1. I thought we were going to draw. I did think that we'd draw 1-1. And for this game, I'll say Chelsea narrow win 2-1. I think we will score first. I think Nicolas Jackson will open his account. So there's me being positive, and I think they'll get an equaliser just before halftime, and we'll probably get a winner in the second half.
Okay, Charlie, I'm going to throw this one to you. How positive are you feeling? If Temba's feeling like it's going to be a 2-1 win, you must be thinking 5-0. What are you thinking?
I am. I'm thinking about that. Yeah, I think 4-0, to be honest. Yeah, but you say that. But I think 4-0. We're at home. We're under the lights. It's a Friday night. The only thing that was interesting is they haven't played, have they? They didn't play this weekend because their stadium's not ready. So whether that makes any difference, obviously we play on Sunday. I don't know how much difference that makes.
We've got a team of 85 players again.
I don't feel sorry for these guys having to play every 5 days. Don't worry. But I don't know if it makes any difference.
I do. Bless them.
I think 4-0 Chelsea or 4-1, something like that. I think it'll be a bit of a bit like Aston Villa did yesterday. You know, they lost 5-1, didn't they, the first game, and then they came out and won 3-0, something like that. You know,
I would say at this moment in time, Aston Villa are a better team than Chelsea at the moment. But I digress. I throw it to the chat. If you see that in the chat, feel free to what you think the score is going to be when it's Chelsea versus Luton. I think I'm gonna tricky. We're in a similar position to where we were last season, where we created a lot of chances, but we're just not clinical. And for that reason, I'm going to go 1-0 to Chelsea. I don't think it's going to be a rout. I really don't. I don't think we'll score twice. I just want a defensively solid performance. That is what I want. Because at the moment, those 3 individual mistakes, I just don't want to see mistakes again. If we can get rid of those mistakes, those goals would not have happened. Let's face it. You know, if Conor Gallagher wasn't caught watching his man, and then changes his mind and looks at the ball at the last second, at which point it's already too late. If Caicedo doesn't give that penalty away, if DeSacy actually clears the ball properly instead of getting it stuck under his feet, it's a completely different game. Let's face it. Get rid of the mistakes. Sorry.
If buts and maybes, it's a young team. I think we'll see a lot of inconsistencies, and it's just going to happen. I think part of my problem is we do need experience. I mean, these comments seem to be quite enthusiastic. Chelsea will beat Luton 3-0, 3-1 Chelsea. So yeah, let's just see. Let's just gain that consistency. Like Charlie said, I think we are just a young team who need a winning streak. Once we get that going, it will be installed into the players of, get that repetition going. And yeah, we can
This is the time. This is absolutely the time to kickstart our season. If you look at the next 4 fixtures, Luton at home, Wimbledon at home, Forest at home, and then Bournemouth away. If we can,
do you know what's quite funny? Could I just say something that's quite funny? I remember there was a run of fixtures last season. It was really
exactly like this.
I think it was Forest away. I think it was just after New Year, around that time. Boxing
Forest
Day.
away when Aurier got the
Bournemouth at home. I think we won. Or Leeds at home, we won. It was around there. Forest away. We had this very similar run of fixtures. Fulham at home. It was in January, I think it was. And we completely messed it up. Southampton at home, probably around there as well. You like you say, Tim, you never know in this league. That's what makes us watch it every week.
Exactly, and it'd be interesting to see. But I appreciate you joining us this week. For the people watching, we want to get to 100 subscribers before the end of August. So if you haven't and watch us and you see us and you're new and you come across and think, go on, you only just have to click it. I just have to click subscribe. That's it. We want to get to 100. It gives us our own URL. It just means we can share it a lot more easily. So we greatly appreciate if you could do so. We host this podcast every Monday at 9:30 p.m. GMT. So make sure you do join us. Apologise for my technical difficulties at the start of the call. I don't know if you clocked me as actually speaking to StreamYard at the bottom right to try and get it resolved. But Charlie, Tem, I appreciate you joining me. We'll be back next week at 9:30. See you next week. Up the Chelsea.
See ya.